Welcome to Crafted Spaces. We love making these videos because there's always something new to learn about craft storage and organization. This time, we're doing something different. We're visiting a studio that we've already toured. Nearly 5 years have passed since visiting the Deb Rector studio outside Atlanta, Georgia. Nearly everything changes with time, and that is especially true with crafting. There are new techniques to explore, design styles to experiment with, and always more and more supplies. We're excited to talk with Deborah about what has changed in her craft room. Let's see what she's learned over the last several years and how it can help you make your craft area work more efficiently. Well, hello, Deborah.
Well, hello, Brett.
It's great to see you again. It's great to be here again and to talk to you. And we're excited just to learn about your room and how it's changed over the years since we were here last. And
okay.
Thanks for doing that.
Absolutely. 5 years have gone by.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Mm-hmm. And things change.
Yes, things do change. Not only in my studio, but in my personal life as well. I think that nothing really stays static. Life does throw us some curveballs. I turned out some of my best work during COVID. Zoomed with my friends. That was fun. We still crafted. We still talked together via Zoom. But on a face-to-face, that was a long time that I went without actually having my friends here. And having them here is a huge part of my life. After COVID kind of lessened up, it became more of a frequent theme for us. And so there have been many changes in my life, both in my studio and personally. So within the span of 6 months, I lost my son-in-law and my spouse. And so that only encouraged me to continue to create, because I knew that he enjoyed it when I created, and he was my biggest supporter, my biggest fan. And I'm still spurred by his emotions to continue. And after he passed away, all my friends rallied around me. They knew that it was uncomfortable for me to leave the house. They knew that I was going through a grief process. And so it became every single week after he passed away that they came. Now, it may not have been all of them together at the same time, but certainly, even if it was 2, they made sure that I wasn't alone that week, that I had their support. And then after that, it just continued. You know, Trilith is a great place to live. We have restaurants nearby, so we can all walk to any one of the restaurants here for lunch, and we have fun and come back and craft. And it's been wonderful having them all come here.
You spend a lot of time planning this room, you know, putting a great attention to detail on all the ways that it would be used. What has surprised you about being in it now for several years, and what have you changed?
Well, over the years, I have changed. I have changed my room somewhat, only by adding more storage pieces. I do get questioned a lot about, because of your space, do you reorganize a lot? Do you find that maybe your workflow has changed? The answer is no. When I designed my room way back, more than 5 years ago in the design phase, I mean, you know how long it's been since I designed this wall, but I had a place for everything in mind. I already had a craft studio. I knew what worked and didn't work, so I knew when I moved here, I had a pretty solid idea of what I wanted. The changes to the room are only by adding 2 more storage pieces, 1 here and 1 there, because I just started to run out of room. I have well over 10,000 stamps and dies. And so finding a home for all of them, having everything organized so that I can keep track and find them, that's a challenge. But the more organization I have, the better it is.
And that's part of the challenge of crafting, is there's always a little bit more
Yes.
new things, new items to explore and play with, and finding space for it. Related to that, do you go back and purge? Like, do you things that you haven't used? What do you do with your old stuff?
Oh my goodness, I wish I did purge. I'm in drastic need of a purge. Now, when I moved from my old house to this house, I purged almost everything I had with the exception of stamps and dies. I was into a lot of different crafts. I was into mixed media. I was trying to get into knitting and crocheting, and I did jewelry making. I don't do any of that. None of them took off. So I ended up purging all of that. So when I moved here, I basically moved only the things that I knew that would stay. Now, could I purge now? Absolutely. Thanks for the reminder, Brett. But so
just
yes,
here to help them.
I know. What are friends for, right?
What are some techniques that you're using now in your crafting that are new to you or that you weren't using before?
My style, I think, is called clean and simple. I use a lot of dimension to my cards. I'm not fond of flat cards. I think in the years that I've been crafting, I do tend to add a lot of dimension. And of course, new products are coming out, new techniques. I love layering stencils. That wasn't a thing when I started making cards. And multi-layering stamps to get that added dimension without having to add foam tape. Multi-layering, that's really big. And I love doing that because I like the challenge of it. More than that, I like the beauty of it. It's new techniques that come out all the time. When I produce cards, I mass produce because I sell. So I will make no less than 50 cards of the same design. At Christmas, I make 80 to 100 cards of the same design. Foiling is so sensitive that it makes it virtually impossible to mass produce. That's kind of if I'm doing a small batch, then I will foil. Another new product that came out by Spellbinders is press plates. And I'm just getting started in that. I think that's a great technique where it actually imprints ink and sets into a cotton paper. It's hard to explain without demonstrating, but it's a new technique and I really enjoy it. So I'm constantly learning new techniques. They may not stick, but I do like learning. I still like to continue trying new things. I still come back to the same style of cards that I've had, and they sell.
What craft item did you first run out of storage space for?
Oh, stamps and dies, without a doubt, and ink. So all inks have different properties. You have dye inks, you have pigment inks, and then you have distress inks. So I buy inks for the various properties, but I also buy inks for the range of colors that they have. So I have full sets of several different kinds of inks. And as you can see behind me and over here, this is just a sample of some of the inks that I have. And I do prefer the large ink pads over the smaller cubes because I mass produce, and so the larger ones work better for me. So I think that as a storage solution, it was definitely stamps and dies and inks.
What are you currently challenged by as your collection of supplies grows?
Space, but since I've added 2 new cabinets, I actually have space for future expansion. So I have room for maybe 1 more piece here in the studio in the future. Now, as far as card storage, I do keep that upstairs. I have a storage area and they're all organized by theme. So when I do sell locally within Trilith at the Funky Shack, and they also have a store in pretty close to here in Tyrone. Those are the two outlets that I sell my cards. So I keep them all by theme. I check my card racks to see when something's running low. So I think as far as storage and storage solutions and space, I'm doing quite well right now.
Has your methods changed? Were you using something more now than you used to?
Well, certainly since the Misty has come out. The Misty is a stamp positioning platform sold by My Sweet Petunia. That is a game changer, because before that, I would never stamp. Because I'm not a steady stamper, I don't get it always in the same place, and doing multiple stamping was out of the question for me. That has really changed my style over the years, is the ability to use a stamp positioning platform, especially when I mass produce cards. So I'm often asked about how many Misties I have, and I do have a lot, but the thing is I use them. So at Christmas, when I'm making multiple cards, and I may make 80 to 100 of a single design, this whole desk will be laid out with Misties, and they'll all have all of the stamps all ready to go. So as I die cut, which is one step, and I'm ready to stamp, I go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. It's almost like an assembly line. Every card is unique, every one is different, but it's similar. So I think that's the one tool that I cannot live without.
Mm-hmm. What would you consider to be your most used supplies, and then how do you store them?
My most used supplies is definitely stamps, dies, and ink. That's the basis of every single card I make. Every card begins with plain paper. I use Neenah Classic Crest Solar White, typically in 110 or 80 pound weight. That's my go-to. And so whether it's a card base or I cut elements to go on the card using a die cut machine, I use always the same paper. It has the same color, the same consistency, and the same GSM. So every card will start out with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And I'm very proud to see how the elements come together and how beautiful something can be made from just plain paper by die cutting and by stamping with inks. It's still a process that astounds me how lovely something can look. And people don't understand that it just starts with plain paper. A non-crafter cannot conceptualize that. Crafters do, and we take a lot of pride in how we finish a product to look the way it does.
How often do you make adjustments to your organizational system? Do you find it ever evolving, and how have Stamp and Storage products help make that process easier?
Well, the process of organization is always going to be evolving as new products come out, or new tools, especially tools. That's been a challenge for me. So just in the last 3 weeks, I've added 2 additional Stamp and Storage products that are the cabinets. And when I show you my tour, I'll demonstrate that. But so I've had embellishments such as sequins or confetti or beads, things like that. They're just stored in boxes, and I forget what I have. You know, you tend to buy and then you forget, like, oh, I didn't even know I had that. So consequently, what I'll do is I'll just order more, because I don't have a better organization system. These cabinets, they're amazing. I need to find room for more because they are truly wonderful.
Got to have room to grow.
You have to have room to grow. And you know, that's where that's evolving is, you know, Stamp and Storage will come out with a product that makes it easier for me to kind of shift things around and make room to grow. It isn't that I'm changing everything entirely. Sometimes I just may shift around.
What do you do with all the projects that you create?
Oh, all the products I create. Well, that goes back during COVID. And I was creating and amassing this huge inventory. And my husband at the time, he said, you've got to do something with all of these cards. You can't just keep putting them in boxes and storing them upstairs. And so once COVID started getting safer where we could get out, I went to the Funky Shack locally. I don't know if you remember the first time we met. That was probably about 3 years ago now. And it was right after, like in the midst of COVID, that I was creating and creating and creating. And I had amassed this huge inventory of cards with nothing to do with them. And so at the time, my husband said, you really need to go to Funky Shack. It had just opened. He said, get in on the ground floor. They probably don't have anything like it. But my anxiety was through the roof. I mean, I'm an introvert.
And you came in and you slid me a little box of cards with a nice little note.
I did.
And then she snuck out the door.
Slinked away.
And
it's like, well, if you like them.
So
about a week later, I checked up on Funky Shack and talked to Dawn, and I said, by the way, I left a box of cards there. And she said, oh my goodness, they sold. I was like, what? And she said, yes, they sold. We had the box sitting out and people saw them and all your cards sold. I said, wait a minute, I didn't even know that we were going to sell them. And she said, it just happened organically. People saw them and we need more. So that's sort of how my relationship with the Funky Shack started. And I'm actually very good friends with Dawn and Jen now. And so I bought a card rack, and the card rack holds 72 different designs. And I populated it with all the cards I made during COVID. And they do sell. I'm still amazed. It actually makes me want to create more unique designs. I find that customers come in and they provide feedback by asking, do you have such and such card? And if not, they'll relay that information to me, and it inspires me to come back and create based on customer needs or customer requests. I think I'm pretty well established as far as space, and I've learned how to balance my inventory. I know the things that sell, I know the things that don't sell, and if I have a specific card that doesn't sell, I'll typically just donate it.
What advice would you like to give other crafters about their craft area?
The advice I would give to other crafters about their craft area is design carefully. Design, design, design. Do not think that you can just go in ad hoc and start adding pieces and thinking, well, this will fit or that will fit. Put it on paper. More than that, when this was just bare walls and subflooring, I came in with blue painter's tape and I made outlines on the floor of every single piece, every built-in, every component of this room that I wanted. So I knew, okay, for example, the craft table that I have right now is U-shaped and it's 12 by 12 and it seats 7 people. I actually had it larger than that in the original drawing, but it didn't allow enough space to walk around comfortably for people to push out their chairs. You know, you have to allow so much room for me to roll back and get out of the desk area. I also wanted to leave room for future expansion, which these 2 units, they were just bare spaces. And so certainly I took that into account. Make sure that you have enough room for expansion, because as crafters know, you're going to run out of space. It's inevitable. Whether you expand into a different room, take over another room, I'd love to do that, but yeah, it is what it is. This is my studio. But design carefully. Put a lot of thought into your workflow. because even though it looks pretty over there and you want this display over there, does it really work well for your workflow? So where I sit at my table, I have things all pretty much within reach, easy reach, with the tools that I use most often, the paper I use most often, the resources that I use. So I would say be sure to plan carefully and plan for future expansion.
Thank you, Deborah. It's been great talking with you and learning more about your room, and excited to see it in more detail.
I look forward to it, and you know, you'll have to come back in 5 years and see what's changed.
I'll take that invitation.
Absolutely, anytime.